what is happening in the global economy regarding food and fuel prices.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I may make a short comment on your comment that I'm not very glad that we have no automatic dismissal of central bank head, because I think that central bank has all instruments to keep inflation low. About next, I think that what is happening with food prices is pushing inflation pressure, but inflation is manageable because it's monetary function. I heavily believe that inflation is a result of monetary activity, and so I cannot understand how food price inflation can influence CPI in general. I really cannot understand that. If CPI is really balanced, based on balanced basket of goods, how it can happen, I cannot understand. Either this automatic dismissal is not effective. The responsibility of central bank presidents is very high in any case, because the parliament can vote for confidence, and we have a very heavy fight against inflation in any case, because we have, unfortunately, remnants of budget deficit from last year, 2007, and the central bank is using their rising interest rates and their depreciating currency. That maybe is not the best thing which can happen, because they are just responding on the challenges. But I think that this year we'll have less inflation than we have last year.
I don't want to start this very interesting and some kind of promising discussion about the role of independence of the central bank in fighting inflation, but let me just mention that in year 1992, the Russian central bank was the mostly independent from any source of power, both executive and representative. And that year, inflation in Russia was 2,600% per year. So that is why it means that the general notion that the central bank independence is the key and the only key to low inflation certainly is not completely correct. And there are different ways how to deal with the main target, how to put inflation down. And I think the Georgian experience is including, along with Russian experience of some kind of negative side and the positive side, could produce interesting data and interesting material to think more about what is the best way how to put inflation down. Because it seems to me we united, I mean the IMF, Georgian authorities, and we are modest analysts here, that putting inflation down is the most important target.
It's very exciting. The topic, so I also want to say that I think that formally, looking to papers, Zimbabwean central bank is much more independent than it was the Bank of England before reform. I mean, in end of 20th century. Yeah, because the Bank of England was part of Treasury Department, and the Zimbabwean central bank, I think it's well structured, having very good statute. Bylaw and Regulation Institute, but I mean that's not the. I mean these things are important, of course, but the most important thing is what nation wants if it is democratic, and what's the institutions, how institutions are structured and balanced. I think that the Federal Reserve was also independent before Volcker and after Volcker, but there was huge difference in. I think there was no change in the law of Federal Reserve.
Right.
Yeah, but there was big difference in monetary policy before Paul Volcker and after Paul Volcker.
A question in front here, right here.
Warren Coates, IMF retired, currently Senior Monetary Policy Advisor to the Central Banks of Iraq and Afghanistan. A quick comment, if you'll permit me, on independence, and then a question. The central bank that introduced the idea of a governor resigning if he didn't fulfill the inflation objective was New Zealand. And the way they did it was not a mandatory resignation, but a mandatory offering of the resignation that the government could then evaluate, given the circumstances, whether they wish to accept it or not, which is an interesting variant. The independence, as Andrei said, is no guarantee, but it may be a huge help. And the high inflation in Russia in '92 was far more for technical reasons of Russia not having control over a payment system that extended throughout all of the former republics, whereby it was issuing huge amounts of credit while all the other republics in '92 were still using the Russian currency. My question then is, given that reforms for all of the medium long-term, I mean the kinds of reforms you've been enacting, for all the medium long-term benefits of liberty and prosperity that flow from them, nonetheless are often quite painful processes and can create a great deal of anxiety on the part of the population. Throughout Central and Eastern Europe, virtually every government, and most of them, most of the time were pretty reformist, was voted out and replaced by the opposition, who in turn were voted out and replaced by the first, perhaps reflecting this difficulty for people accepting rapid reform. What is your prognosis for Georgia in the coming election, and what advice would you give for minimizing this reform backlash?
No, I mean, my prognosis for upcoming parliamentary elections is based on deep polling research, which was done at the beginning of May. So it's, I mean, there's next. I am not adding value to that. I mean, that there would be significant majority will go to ruling party. So it's very, very simple thing. So there is no rocket science there. It's just a result of polling. And but I think that there is a problem. But problem is coming not from these reforms. Actually, I can swear that none of this reform was really sensitive for population. For example, except maybe people who were fired from police, or for example, I downsized the whole system of Ministry of Economic Development 3 times, and of course those people are not very happy, I think. I helped downsizing the Ministry of Agriculture 5 times, and also those people are not very happy. But that's quite small part of population. That's why, for example, if you look to voting results, and I think the same would be in parliamentary elections, the capital city voters, they vote for opposition. People outside capital city, they vote for ruling party because they get some benefits from reforms. And of course, all this corruption, all this excessive government employees, all this police, they were mainly concentrated in capital city. And of course, we get that result. But there is, but really there is a problem. Problem is that the modern growth based on foreign direct investments, based on deregulation, etc., it's mainly jobless growth. So it means that you are accumulating some types of expectations in public, and then those expectations are not happening. So, for example, people feel that there is economic growth, people feel there is better roads, people feel there is new hotels, new processing facilities, new investments, new equipment, but they are out of this. Yeah. For example, let's take agriculture. Our agriculture is one of the most inefficient part of our economy. 50% of population producing 12% of GDP, and of course any improvements in agriculture, like new technologies, like more capital-intensive things which reduce need in workforce, they will not benefit anyone in rural area a lot. Yeah, that means that we should have another system, and that's question about not about economic reforms. That was the ideal structure of economy, but about political economy of reforms. And political economy of reforms, so you need to soften not